Redditors who have tried to hide on your cruise when it ended so that you could stay on the ship for the next round. How did that go? I don't know if this counts, but my dad got locked in a toilet cubicle on a ferry to France and it took several people to find him. The toilet was right out of the way and you couldn't hear him yelling even right outside in the corridor because the doors were so massive. I guess he could have gone immediately back to England. Could have become a ship toilet hermit. This happened to me on a boat in Malta. I went to pee on the only toilet on board in the basement of the boat as the boat docked for a 4-hour stop. I legitimately thought I might die. It was so hot I thought I might suffocate. Finally some guy found me 15 minutes after I was screaming and pounding on the door. He let me out and then laughed about it to his friends. Used to be in the USCG. We had this happen a few times in Miami. They were all escorted off the ship. Typically the police handle the situation. But if a stowaway was discovered while still in the 3-12 mile range, we would render assistance once they were apprehended by the on-board law enforcement. Boarded for a trip from Southampton to Queenstown. Stayed on to get to New York. All was good until we hit a damn iceberg. Been 107 years and still haven't docked. Ducking sucks. Man. At least the water is heating up finally though. Swimming pools are full of salt water though. Better call the maintenance guys. Not me, but a couple decided to hide to try get another week out of their holiday. This was while we were halfway through our holiday. So we heard it all. Dozens of announcements calling for them or anyone who's seen them were made throughout the day. Their rooms were searched and everything they owned in that room was seized, apparently. The ship left port late by about 90 minutes. But they were eventually found and escorted off the ship when the crew decided to check the identity of every passenger on board. A little different. I was going through a really hard bout with depression in 2012 and really had nothing going on in life besides an overnight job at a gym. My parents decided to do a family cruise in March as our Christmas present. I was actually planning on saying goodbye to my family at the end of the trip and just getting off at the last island and not getting back on. Then I found out the cruise company would alert local authorities that I didn't get back on. I wanted to just island skip for a while instead of backpacking through Europe to do some thinking and adventuring. I didn't want to end up in some shitty Caribbean jail. It is right they don't just leave without passengers as they could be lost and stuck. What happens if they find you and you don't want to get back on board? I have no idea. But can't think what you would go to jail for. You'd be all on your own though if you couldn't get home. I worked for Carnival. We will find you. We know you're in the ship. And we all want you to get off so I can take a short nap before I have to do it all over again in a few hours. I know you're planning something up. I can neither confirm nor deny these allegations. Nice try, FBI. Day 247. They still don't realize. I have been living off of seawater and Ritz crackers for the past month. I can't let them see me in the cafeteria. People tell me all the time, dude. Just leave the boat, but none of them understand. Using the quarters I find on the ground. I was finally able to pay my cell phone bill again today. I got a text from some guy named Boss, dumb name, telling me that he's gonna put me in a thing of fire. Whatever. Probably insane. I got a scam text from some guy named Jane calling me husband. And from police. Regardless. I'm probably gonna fry up the phone battery for more fire today. I sometimes wonder what life is like outside of the ship. But quickly dismiss those thoughts after I realize that there is no such thing as living outside of the ship. Around day 50 or 60. People in blue coats began to harass me. Saying that I must go or they're gonna find me or something. They're probably just heroin addicts. Though they scared me enough to go incognito until they're gone. I found some crew clothing in the laundry and put it on. The crew was changing out at the last stop so nobody would recognize my new face. In the 2 days between the ending of one round and the start of the next leg, I found myself enjoying the nods from other crew members and a level of respect I wasn't used to having dressed as a normal passenger. I decided that I would chat up some of the bar staff and see if I'd have any luck getting free drinks. After a few beers, this new bartender came on. An old British guy. Looked like he'd seen some stuff. He had a nickname for everyone. Governor. Amigo. Pal. Comrade. I guess he'd really traveled a lot. He kept serving me drinks with a sly wink. Like from one old sea dog to another. It came time to settle my bill. As the ship was prepping for departure. And when I went to give him money. Sure enough. He told me I didn't have to pay. No sir, he said. This one's on me. See ya. No trouble at all. Good luck getting us out of dock. And he pointed over my shoulder with his chin. I turned around and the rest of the bridge crew was there with a security detail. I don't know if this counts, but on the last night of a cruise my friends and I got really drunk. Well, I don't know how the hell, but I ended up somewhere passengers shouldn't be, in a goddamn supply closet I believe. The ship had docked and there was a 2-hour search for me. Still drunk, I couldn't find a way to get out of the room where the supply closet was, but the door was locked. The crew thought I was trying to sneak another ride, but after reviewing the cameras they clearly could tell I was nowhere near sober. So they let me go on my way with a good laugh. To this day I still don't remember making my way down there. I was on a ship traveling from Portugal to China. We took a wrong turn somewhere. Landed on a remote island. And now the captain's enslaving all the locals. I think a lot of you guys are underestimating how easy this would actually be. They count people. There are 2,000 passengers on a decent sized cruise ship. And at no point was everyone funneled through any sort of checkpoint except when getting on and off the ship. You have to swipe a card, yeah? To buy something or get into a room. You don't have to swipe it to go to the buffet or get into the theater. A cruise ship is the size of multiple city blocks when you add up all the deck space. And there are 2,000 people walking around with no ID on them. If you wanted to stay on the ship, you could 100% do it without all that much difficulty. Your only real challenge would be finding somewhere to sleep that didn't get you harassed. Ships tend to have really good tracking of their packs. There's security cameras everywhere, and when you disembark they give the ship a really good walkthrough. All the passenger areas are easy to see through and have no hiding places, and if the packs were to be in a crew area, it happened every now and then, we would notice immediately. I've never had passengers try to stow away, but I've definitely seen crew run away from the ship. Mostly happens in American ports. Personally, when I was working on ships I couldn't wait to get the duck off them every time I saw land. Why people cruise to begin with is beyond my comprehension. I am a stand-up comic who works on cruise ships 3-4 months out of the year. Guests who take forever to leave suck. Employees of the ship can't leave until every last guest has exited the vessel. So if a guest is taking their time to leave or hiding, they are potentially keeping over 100 employees from going home. And many of the employees are on the ship for like 8 months. So every second counts when they just want to get off and start heading home. Get the duck off the boat. Not exactly. But I feel like there are very few people who could answer this. I was on a 3-week cruise through the Bahamas. Hated life. My now ex-wife. My job. We stopped at the island of Nassau, where we could get out and tour for the day. My wife stayed back on the ship, as we had gotten into an argument and wanted nothing to do with each other. We were instructed to be on that boat by the end of the day. So after a couple of hours at a tiki bar, I headed back. I didn't want to go back. It was paradise. When I got on the ship, they checked me in. Because when I exited the boat, they checked me out. I then headed to the stern, half drunk, and jumped off of the boat as soon as we left the wharf. See? There aren't beaches next to the wharf. It's a residential area. The houses are right on the water. There is, however, a small land mass in front of the wharf. I realized that I probably wouldn't be able to go up onto the main island. So I headed for the landmass. I got up onto the beach of the landmass. Exhausted. But happy. Nonetheless. I guess my wife told the staff. Which told the higher ups on the ship. Who contacted the Nassau authorities. I obviously didn't know this at the time. So I was just relaxing on the beach, wondering if there would be a ferry coming by or something so tourists could visit the little island. So I could GRT on it like a tourist and go back to the main island. Well, I did get my ferry to the island, but in the form of a Nassau Police Department boat. Spent a couple of days in a Nassau jail. Cousin ended up flying out to bail me out. Thanks, Jerry. Paid a fine. Got a divorce. Moved to the countryside. And the rest is history. While I won't rule it out as an impossibility nowadays, it would be extremely difficult. First, you're scanned on and off the ship, so they'd know you never got off. So now you're hiding on the ship. WTF are you going to do? You won't be able to get into or back into your room. You won't be able to eat or drink on some of the cruises since you'll need a valid keycard or wristband. You'll be carrying all your stuff around, since you'll have nowhere to store it. You might make it to the first port without being caught, but then you'd probably want off, and when you get scanned off you're busted. I'd say it's 99.9% likely you spend your stowaway cruise in the ship's jail cell until you get back to home port. My friend did this. He can't handle his drink and we were on a mini cruises from Newcastle to Amsterdam. After a good few drinks he loses it, rips a table from the wall and throws it away. Took his top off as well as another friend's top and threw them overboard shouting "Wee-I-I-I-I-I-I." He was quickly sent to the brig and had his passport confiscated, meaning he couldn't get back on the boat after our day in Amsterdam. So he tried to hide under the bed. According to his story he couldn't fit, so his feet were sticking out a bit, and said he got caught straight away. They threw him off and we never seen him that day. Imaginably when we got back on the boat to no friend under the bed, we were concerned. We chose his closest friend to call his dad to say we have lost your son Mayo, and his answer was "Oh I know, we booked him a flight." Turns out he ventured off the boat in a panic. Somehow managed to find a British embassy and explained his situation. Not sure how, but they organized him to fly home without a passport. Every time I see him I ask him to tell me the story again for a laugh. Wow, I can actually kinda answer that. Okay, so it was not a cruise but a ferry. Also we didn't hide on purpose. It was the ferry from Souris, Prince Edward Island to the Isles de la Madeleine, Quebec, Canada. A 12 hours ride. We embarked at 2 AM and found a very quiet spot to sleep. We slept through the landing and no one woke us up because no one actually saw us. When we woke up we saw the islands going away from us. Result, we spent 36 hours on that boat. Sorry for my bad English. Every cruise ship has an employee section that includes a club bar areas. I once got access after hitting on a bartender. Beers were $1 and everyone was wasted. That's an area I would look into. You'll never find it on your own, def need an employee to show you how to get in. Dude. This should be any or all of them. 1. A life pro tip. 2. Life hack. 3. How to vacation frugally. Seriously. Vacationing frugally wouldn't start with a cruise. It's a great value, but it's still a pretty nice chunk of change. There was an episode of This American Life, I think, where a woman did this. But back in the day, like the 60s or early 70s, there were seating charts or something in the dining room so she couldn't sneak in to eat. And things that she assumed would be open most at night, like bars, weren't. She lived on a lot of bar garnishes and had to pretend she was drunk who kept passing out in the lounge. It was a lot less fun than she thought it would be, with very little sleep and cleaning herself up in public bathrooms while worrying she would be caught doing so at any time. She had to sneak back into her own country because she hadn't brought a passport. An ex of mine was a on-boat cruise photographer. I remember asking her something similar before, and she told me they swipe on and swipe off everyone. On every stop. At every time. She did say that she'd known people to try and stow away, but basically it turns into a massive ducking Easter egg hunt to find the person. The liner she was on always awarded the staff member that found the person with some sort of bonus, but she never told me what it was. I remember her saying that someone caused a ship to be something like 6 hours late to leave because they'd done such a good job at hiding. Eventually they were found or gave themselves up and were arrested by port authorities. I was on a cruise where a guy tried to climb down the ship into the lifeboats. Of course. He fell overboard and died in the water, and we all woke up a few days before Christmas to a cruise worker on a jet ski pulling his waterlogged corpse out of the ocean. So, I can't recommend it. But hey, his ghost is probably still there. Unusual to find the body. His family must have been relieved at that at least. They were incredibly lucky to find him. We woke up to the ship tilting and thought, hey, what are we turning for, and looked out the window to see another ship opposite us circling this area of ocean. And workers on the jet skis pulling the body out of the water. I honestly don't know how they found him. Because this was hours after he fell. But at least his family got him back. Semi-off topics are for Canadians. Unless you purchase the ship's Wi-Fi package, do not use your cell phone on a ship. It's $4 per minute talk time. 75 cents for a sent message. 25 cents for a received message. And $15 MB for data. It's called Premium Maritime Pay-Per-Use Rates and is billed to your carrier by the ship's cruise line. On the ship, the closed cell tower is the ship's mast. I work in the industry and I have seen people's cell phone bill cost more than their cruise. Not a stowaway but a cruise ship worker for Royal Caribbean. This is actually a pretty regular occurrence, probably happening about once a month every other month. My favorite was when someone had gotten very high on acid and locked themselves in the bathroom because they were with their family and didn't want them to find out. The cruise docked, and when it was time to go, the family was panicking trying to find him. Security eventually found him and he admitted that he was planning on leaving his family here while he did the cruise a second time. Honestly, there was no way he could have gotten away with this because they make sure everyone is off the boat before we let more people on, and if we didn't find him then the cleaning crew would have. I was playing hide and seek on a Norwegian cruise to the Bahamas. There was a spiral staircase that went down to a room where you could watch the captain drive the ship, and there was a massive door on the direct opposite side and I hid in there. Closed the door and it locked from the outside. Yup, I got locked in the brig and had no cell phone connection and no one could hear me. I went a whole day in there banging a metal pipe against the wall until a police officer found me. I was basically traumatized, thinking no one would ever find me and I would die in there. My family was scared shitless, thinking I had fallen overboard. I had coast guards, police, and the entire ship's crew looking for me for hours. I will never play hide and seek on a cruise ever again, and I now realize what a stupid idea it was to even play in the first place on such a big ship. But hey, I lived and now I can laugh about it. And cry about it. I almost died. Don't do it on a Disney cruise. Hours of brutal torture at the hands of Goofy will duck up your world. Last time I heard his Ahiak, I had a flashback and 8 months of therapy was undone. Do you want to be waterboarded by an anthro dog? Do you want to hear him sing when you wish upon a star while putting out cigarettes on your arm? Don't do it. Bruh. My ex told me this story. When we split up, he said he was messed up mentally about it. If that's your excuse, then okay. So he went on a singles cruise with his buddy. The problem was, he was in his early 30s and everyone else was like 45 plus. The cruise isn't helping his mood at all until they land in Jamaica and him and his buddy take a taxi to some bar in the bush. There he meets a pretty girl. Wins a game of pool. Life feels good again. They hear the warning signal for the cruise, so they get back on the boat. My ex was shook and didn't want to continue. So he put important documents in a plastic bag and jumped off the boat. Although he's a newfie, he swims like a rock and Jamaican authorities had to rescue him. Then they questioned him for 24 hours. Are you sane? Do you have money to get home? Until he was able to call the bar chick he had met to verify his story. They released him and gave him 3 weeks to visit play on the island. The rest of the story is pretty boring. He stayed and played hide the weenie for a few weeks until he started getting hit up for money all the time. But the funny thing was, I met a guy from Jamaica. I live in northern Canada, and I told him this story and he knew about it. Apparently my ex's island law now lol.